Welcome to my part 2 of my Compound World Championships report. As an international coach, I'm always expected to know what the best equipment is and to have an opinion and be able to direct people in what's best to deliver performance. And a part of that, a part of keeping myself up to date, keeping myself honest, is to go through World Championship results, typically like top 32 people, like I have done here, and just see what's being used to make sure what I think is being used is still current and up to date. Just want to say thank you for making part 1 of this series really successful. It's got over 13,000 views. We covered everything from bows to cams to axle length, and thank you for the feedback. It's really been one of my most popular videos ever. So in this video, we're going to go through compound stabilizer setups that are used by the best in the world. I'm sort of less interested in the make because there's a lot of quality stabilizers out there, but to be honest, from me casually looking at it, it seems to me at the moment ramrods are really popular. But then also, of course, there's many other light, stiff rods out there that people are using. This video is going to be about how to set them up. What is the balance? What are the location of the rods? How many rods? And then we're also going to finish off by covering what are the most popular sights and scopes being used to deliver the best results in the world. Broadly, the stabilizers fell into 3 categories. They fell into the category of a long rod and one side rod rear mounted. Having a long rod with a side rod that's mounted at the front as shown here. Now for me, the weight often ends up in the same place in 3-dimensional space, so I'm not sure it matters whether you're fixing it at the front or the back. It's just where the rod is in space, because typically those of you having a rear mounted rod are going for a 10 to 12. And those of you mounting at the front are going for a 15. So really the weight is ending up in the same place, so I don't know if there's a difference. If you've tried both and there is a difference, let me know. And then the third option is having a long rod with 2 rods, a more traditional V-bar setup, but mounted down, lower down. All the bows in the top 32 fitted into that description. So once I've gone through the top 16 men, the top 16 women, by far the most popular choice is to have a long rod and one rear mounted back rod. This is now 26 of the top 32. This is the overwhelming choice of champions, and it has been what I have been getting students to do since probably around 2010 is when it first come onto the scene, and we'll touch more details on that later. And coming in with 4 out of the top 32, we had the long rod and the longer side rod mounted at the front. As shown here, used by Mr. Perfect, used by Mike. He's probably the most notable archer using that front mounted longer rod. Now I'm gonna try and catch up with him in Las Vegas because I'd love to know why he's doing that, because his bow has a wonderful stabilizer bush right at the bottom, at the back of the bow, and I would think he'd be able to use a bottom mount, a shorter rod, and get the weight in the same position in space, but maybe the rod has to be less long, so therefore it's going to be stiffer. I'd love to know his thinking on that. So I'm going to do what I can to get him in Las Vegas and see if I can get an answer for you guys, okay? And then the remaining 2 archers, they went for something a little bit different. They went for a long rod at the front and 2 side rods coming from the bottom of the bow. I want to be clear, even though only 2 archers used this system, I have no issues with this at all. It's perfectly stable. It can deliver clearly world-class results. It's just that most people don't need to have 2 to end up with a well-balanced, well-aiming bow, so they don't. It's not that there's anything wrong with it. I think if I went to most archers and said, look, you have to shoot with 2 rods, the world archery rules have changed, I think once they purchased the kit and spent a week setting them up, people's performance would be back to where it is. They'd just have maybe 1/3 of the weight on the rod the other side and 2/3 on their side that it currently is to offset the sight and the cut over of the riser. But I think people wouldn't have, so it's not that I think there's any negatives to do with this stabilizer setup. It's just that most archers don't need this stabilizer setup. And if you really want to be a bit on the economy side, one less rod and buying a side mount instead of a V-bar, you could be saving a couple of $100 there. So I guess if you don't need it, why would you? I just want to touch on stabilizer lengths. And obviously for me, watching videos, this is the hardest thing for me to judge. But I think I'm confident looking at the proportions that we're within an inch or two, if you know what I mean. So really, the most popular long rod length by far is 30 inches. Now, there might be a few people with a shorter draw length going for a 28. There might be a 31 or a 32 in there, but from what I see, I don't see the 36s. I don't see the super long rods. It really does seem to be, if you give someone a 30-inch long rod, you can make it work. It's by far, I think if you speak to the archery shops, it's probably going to be 95% of sales. Now, if you're fixing your side rod at the bottom, on the back of the bow, typically a 10 or a 12 is super popular, and I'm just going to touch on some more details that might help you choose that just later in the video. And if you're fixing at the front, like Magic Mike, sorry, Mr. Perfect, Magic Mike is a whole different movie altogether. He's going to go for something like a 15-inch rod because it's a bit higher, a bit further forward. You need those extra 3 to 5 inches to make up for the fixing point being further forward. And of course, if you're going for the V-bars, the twin rods, you can have whatever your length you like, but typically a 12 is really popular. One thing I want to make clear is that stabilizer setups have changed over the years. If you were to go back to the World Cup circuit in around 2008, 2010, by far the most popular was to have a long rod and a V-bar fixed at the front. Quite frankly, pretty much copying the recurve setups. And the choice of weights with a smaller diameter, and people were using much less of them. Again, they were pretty much taking their recurve setup and putting it on a compound, and that was winning World Cups, like shown with this archer here. And for me, it really changed in 1 year. In 2010, I saw the biggest change in stabilizer setups I've ever seen. In 2010, particularly for me, around a World Cup in America, in Ogden, we had a World Cup there, and on the practice field for the whole week we were there was a guy called Greg Poole who was working for a company called Bee Stinger at the time. Now, I'm sure some of you will tell me Greg Poole didn't come up with the idea. Who knows? All I know is from my point of view, he was on the practice field with the kit from Bee Stinger, and he was encouraging people to try having a long rod, one side rod, pointing much lower down and having significantly more weight on it. Now, luckily for me, one of the athletes I was coaching at the time, I think she was in the world top 10, and this is her choice of words. Luckily, she got knocked out of the tournament early on. Now, you wouldn't normally say that, but the reason she would say it's lucky that she got knocked out, because she got knocked out, next day, because she's a champion, she's back on the practice field training. I introduced her to Greg and they got talking, and she tried his stabilizer method or his methodology for setting up a bow. And yes, I'm sure he didn't invent it, but he was the one who delivered it to me and many other people in the world archery globe, who talked her through how to try this one long rod, one side rod, lower down with significantly more weight. And at the end of the day, working with him, she was shooting significantly better, her words, and went on to win 2 more World Cups and actually to win the Commonwealth Games, both individually and as a team. And then for an English person to win the Commonwealth Games, that's right up there. That's like our equivalent of the Pan Am Games and other sort of continental championships. So that was a huge result. And all because she made this significant change, made her bow aim better. And when it comes to compounds, not all the time, but 98% of the time, if we can make it aim better, we can make you score better. Because if you can have your sight on the 10 and you can shoot a surprise shot, you're going to hit the 10 most of the time. So recurve can be a little bit different because you've got to have that feeling of expansion. You've got to have that dynamicness. And sometimes a well-aiming bow can be less dynamic and harder to shoot. Compound, not the case. Better it aims, the more you can hold your pin on the 10, the more 10s you're going to hit. And yeah, This methodology and style of setting up a bow that Greg Poole certainly introduced to me and many other world archery competitors, that went on, and as you can see, I would say within a year, it had 30% of the world's top archers shooting it. And now you can see 90% of the world's best are shooting this type of setup. It has totally changed. So yeah, I'm telling you this story because this is why I have to go through these videos. Why, as a coach who takes his job very seriously, I want to continue to produce world-class and world #1 athletes. So for me, I need to go through this data, see what's happening, see what's changing to make sure my athletes are always delivering the best technique and equipment. While we're on this topic, I want to touch on one potential issue. Sometimes it can get to the point where it starts to touch your side of you, or even just touch your clothing. But if it touches the side, touches the clothing, the judge, if they're a good judge, would give you a yellow card. And that means if you do it again, you're out. So if you're halfway through an end, they give you a yellow card and you're like, what am I meant to do? And then you draw up again and the judge sees your clothing, even if it's just a t-shirt or a jacket, touch that stabilizer again, it's red card, you're out of the tournament, done. Because if you actually prop that against your side, you'll be surprised how steady you can make your bow, particularly in a windy day. And that is why it is illegal and we do not do it. So this problem often comes because I get people, particularly the men, but some of you women out there are super strong as well. You start off with a 12-inch rod and maybe you have 6 ounces on the back. Everything is fine. You've got a couple of inches gap between your side of your chest and the bow, no problems. But then over time, maybe you're working with me, we're focusing more on our training, we're focusing more on stability. And all of a sudden that 6 ounces over the last 6 months has now become 26 ounces. And now it's considerably longer and it's starting to touch your t-shirt. Because that's the most common thing. If it touches your side, you're aware of it, you make changes. But I've had archers who it's like a centimeter away from their t-shirt and they had no idea. But if you get one judge, even if you know there's a centimeter gap, I wouldn't trust it because you get a judge who can't really see and it looks like they're touching, boom, red card, finished. So what do I do in this situation? The situation is you can move the rod down, you can move the rod out, but that might affect the balance of what you want. So this is probably the main, maybe the only situation where I recommend people buying the tungsten weights. Yeah, I know, I've seen the price too. They are expensive. But if you've got a setup that's working for you and you like that extra mass weight, as many of us, many athletes really do, because when you go over to the tungsten weights, you're basically taking like a pile of 10 weights that's normally this long and you're squishing it down to the size of like 4 or 5 weights. So you can cut your length of stabilizer stack from this down to this. Yeah, it's going to cost you $200, but if you have to, you have to. So yeah, that's the only sort of situation where I'm like, yeah, you really should put your hand in your pocket and buy some tungsten weights. So if you are now thinking you want to try having this rear mounted single rod stabilizer setup, I'm going to just go through what I recommend. And what I really like is the Hoyt Atlas sidebar adapter by Shrewd. And I think Shrewd make it as well without Hoyt written on it. But that comes in at around $120 and I really like it. I've never had one break. I've never had one come undone. It's got a quick detach for the side rod because if you've got a stack of 20 or 30 ounces on your side rod, screwing it in is actually a little bit awkward and you can rip the threads out in no time because you've got so much weight pulling on the thread. When you're screwing it in every time, I've seen it just ruin a really good sidebar mount in a season. Whereas with this Shrewd one with the quick detach, yeah, I find it super good, super reliable, and it's got the little extra screw that in the Hoyt just means it takes some of that side load, and that's probably part of the reason why I've never had one come undone. If you're going for a twin rod setup, like I said, I've got no problems with that, but the most popular one there is different. It's the Axle Tri-Lock adjustable V-bar mount. That, whether it's the recurves with a significant amount of mass or whether it's the compounds with that extra shock, this by far is the most popular one without question. I see it all over the place. I see archers who are not shooting axle rods and they're choosing to shoot this V-bar. So this makes me see that, okay, people have acknowledged that it doesn't really matter what rods you're shooting. If you want the best adjustable V-bar mount in the world, the Axle Tri-Lock is absolutely the one to have. As promised, the next topic is sights. What sights were the top 32 archers in the world using? Now, for me, this is an example of something I need to keep a check on. Because for me, I have always recommended Shibuya sights. I really love this Shibuya sight. I like its simplicity, that I can take it apart in the field and repair anything. Not that I've really had much to repair over the last 20 years, but I like them. I like their accountability, that the sight I was first using back in '96, you can still buy spare parts for it now. Now that's something that you only pick up on after you've had a long career in the sport. That sometimes I'll see someone, they've got an 8-year-old sight, everything's fine about the sight, they've just lost one piece, has fell out, or one piece is broken, and a whole sight is going in the trash can because they can't buy spare parts. Shibuya are excellent and truly known for, one, they give their products a long life cycle. So basically the top sight, when I was a kid, is now their economy sight at the bottom of the range. But because of that, 30 years later, you still got spare parts, you can still buy near enough the same sight, and they just keep on putting new sights in at the top and then moving the best sight in the world down to being the mid-range and then their economy. So you've got that longevity and you know that you're gonna be able to use this sight for your whole career. Because for me, if I think when I first went to recurve after compound, I got my Shibuya recurve sight then, I used that sight for the whole 12 years that I shot recurve. I'm pretty sure I used the same one the whole way through because it's fine, they last. And that sight now is the mid-range sight and it's still being sold. You can still get spare parts for it. That's why I go for Shibuya. But when I go through the numbers this time, 24 of the 32 were shooting axle sights and only 8 is shooting the Shibuya. So if that Shibuya number was at 0 or 1 or 2, I really should start to consider that I need to start recommending a different sight. But clearly, credit where credit's due. The axle sight is great. I love it. It's a little bit more complicated. Sometimes I feel like I wouldn't be able to open up and fix it, but they don't really go wrong. They're a great sight. They're good quality. They're an excellent company. You know, they're a company that cares. You meet them at the trade shows. Their staff are absolutely great. You know, it's another quality world-class archery company. We're lucky that we have so many. And yeah, so the axle sight is clearly a great choice. And my personal choice of the Shibuya, yeah, it's still there, it's still being used, but it's not quite as popular as it used to be. But in my eyes, they're both great choices and you can't go wrong. Another piece of advice I'll jump in here with, if I was buying a Shibuya sight, I would buy the Shibuya scope. If I was buying the axle sight, I would buy the axle scope. They all just fit together that little bit better, that little bit more durable. There's less connections and there's just less chance that it's ever gonna go wrong. That's the truth. And both of them make world-class scopes, but there isn't much reason for having a third-party scope, unless you're on their economy bandwagon, which I fully support. Trust me, I had plenty of years there. And for me, the best, I don't even want to call it economy, that feels a bit mean. I'm going to call it a mid-range scope, is the Maibo Merlin 10 zone scope. Comes in, it's available around the world, comes in at around the $100 mark. Comes with a fiber optic that you can pull out, throw in the bin and put one of the little stickers on there. Top tip there. For target archers. It's a great option. Like I say, $100, where I've lost track of how expensive the Shibuya and the axle scopes are. They're great, but let's face it, the price just keeps on climbing and climbing. The Maibo 10 zone, great scope, and I've known world #1 archers use it. Yeah, so that's why I don't want to call it an economy choice, because there is no reason you can't use this scope and go shoot a world record. It is a quality piece of kit, okay? It's got a Nikon or Nikon lens and great piece of kit. Save yourself some money, or hand on heart, if you want the best of the best, yeah, get the scope that matches your site. Thank you for watching this week's video. I hope it is useful. The next one, I'm going to be going through arrow rests, release aids, and how people actually shoot. That'll be in the next video, hopefully next week. But also I have some interview videos with world-class psychologist, archery sports psychologist, Louise Jones. I'm in the middle of editing them now, so I'm hoping I can upload them in the next week or so as well. And as always, if any of you are looking for some world-class online coaching, I have a couple of spaces. I'm saying that and I actually think I'm full next week, but I have a couple of spaces. And if you want some online world-class coaching, it starts at around $169. My details are all in the description. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for liking, thanks for subscribing, and thanks for watching.